Good evening, everybody. Tonight we are looking at, yes, sorry, Miriam. Good evening to you and you, Richard, and Baruch, and Jerry. Jerry will be right back. And tonight I've decided to do something a little bit different. The reading, the portion is actually called Tetzaveh. Tetzaveh is God is commanding us, and it's continuation of the Mishkan. Hello, Jerry. So it's continuation of the furnishings. But because next week is the holiday of Purim, this coming Shabbat is called Shabbat Zachor. It's the Shabbat of remembrance. And it falls just before Purim because Purim is what we're to remember. Now, the Haftorah portion is from 1 Samuel 15, 2 to 34. And that's the portion we're going to read it. We're going to read together tonight. So I'd like to share the screen. We'll read it, and then I'll share some of my thoughts about it and some of your thoughts. So let's go to 1 Samuel. It's not a long portion. And I'm going to begin with verse 1, always for context, although they say verse 2. Samuel said to Saul. Now, who was Saul? Do you remember who Saul is? Saul is our first king, the first king of Israel. The people wanted to be, they wanted to be like the other nations. They wanted a king. God did not intend to have a king, a human king for Israel. He was going to be our king. Samuel said to Saul, I am the one the Lord sent to anoint you king over his people Israel. Therefore, listen to the Lord's command. Here it's really lekol diberei Adonai. Listen to the voice of God giving the words, giving his words to us. Thus says the Lord of hosts, which is Adonai Tzevaot, the Lord of the armies. I am exacting the penalty for what Amalek did to Israel, for the assault that he made upon them on the road on their way up from Egypt. Now, what Amalek did was, because when we left with those who were the quickest, the strongest were in the front, and the weakest were in the rear. The children, the women, and Amalek, that's where Amalek struck from the rear, just like Hamas did. Struck the weakest, where there was no army. They struck the kibbutzim in the south. And Arafat himself, who started the whole PLO, he said, I am Amalek. That's just a thought to keep in mind. Now go, he's telling Saul, go attack Amalek and destroy, have nothing to do, destroy all that belongs to him. Spare no one, but kill men, women, infants, and babies nursing, oxen, sheep, camels, and donkeys. Not only kill children and women, but even the animals. You know, people have looked at this verse and they say, what kind of a God is this who would do all these things, who would kill all these innocent babies? What do the animals ever do? But if you understood the life in the paganism of those days and how they affected every part of that society was affected. There are babies who were even 6 months old who the fathers would force themselves on those babies. This has happened even today. The oxen, the sheep, the camels, the men would have sex with their animals. These people, this whole culture was completely evil, destroyed. So Saul mustered the troops and enrolled them at Telaim, 200,000 men on foot and 10,000 men of Judah. Then Saul advanced as far as the city of Amalek and lay in wait in the Wadi, in the valley. And Saul said to the Kenites, come, withdraw at once from among the Amalekites, so that I may not destroy you along with them. For you showed kindness to all the Israelites when they left Egypt. So the Kenites withdrew from among the Amalekites. Saul destroyed Amalek from Havilah all the way to Shur, which is close to Egypt. And he captured, he didn't kill, notice, he captured King Agag of Amalek alive. He destroyed all the people, putting them to the sword. But Saul and the troops spared Agag, the best of the sheep, the best of the oxen, even the second born, the lambs, and all that was of value. So the only thing that he destroyed was what was cheap and had no value. So did he listen to what Samuel said? Did he obey God? Obviously not. He probably felt that he was being more humane than God. And we see a lot of that even in the world today. The word of the Lord came to Samuel. I regret that I made Saul king, for he has turned away from me and has not carried out my commands. Samuel was distressed, and he begged the Lord all night long, because he was the one who anointed Samuel as King Saul. Saul had the anointing, and the word in Hebrew for anointing is Mashiach. So Saul was a Mashiach, which shows that not all the Mashiachs were good. Sometimes we have that idea. Early in the morning, Samuel went to meet Saul, and Samuel was told. Saul went to Carmel, and he's erecting a monument for himself. And then he left and he went on down to Gilgal. When Samuel came to Saul, Saul said to him, Oh, blessed are you of the Lord. I have fulfilled the Lord's command. Look how deluded this guy is. Then what, demanded Saul, is this bleating of sheep in my ears and the lowing of oxen that I hear?
Demanded Samuel.
Demanded Samuel. Yeah, Samuel is saying, what's this bleating of sheep and the lowing of oxen if you destroyed everything as you were supposed to? And Saul answered, These were brought from the Amalekites, for the troops spared. You see, he's blaming it on the troops spared the choicest of the sheep and the choicest of the oxen for sacrificing to the Lord your God. We destroyed the rest. So here he's pretending that he's this holy guy, taking the best to make sacrifices to God. And what does God say?
But he also says, for sacrificing to the Lord your God.
Exactly. Good. I missed that, but I didn't miss it the first time when I read it.
Right.
Totally. To the Lord your God. He never admitted that the God of Israel was his own God. Samuel said to Saul, Stop already. Let me tell you what the Lord said to me last night. So Saul said, Speak. And Samuel said, You may look small to yourself, meaning he may consider himself to be the smallest of tribes because they were from Benjamin, and Benjamin was the least of the tribes. Saul was a Benjamite. But you are made head of the tribes of Israel. You're the king, even though you came from Benjamin. And the Lord anointed you. You see, Mashiach, the Lord anointed you king over Israel. And the Lord sent you on a mission, saying, Go and destroy the sinful Amalekites. Make war on them until you have exterminated them. Why did you disobey the Lord and swoop down onto the spoil in defiance of the Lord's will? And Saul said to Samuel, But I did obey the Lord. I performed the mission which the Lord sent me. I captured King Agag of Amalek, and I destroyed Amalek. Did he? Look how deluded we think. I have spoken to people about things that they say are awful for other people to do, and they don't see how they're doing it themselves. It's the same with me. Sometimes we just don't see. For some reason, we're blinded. But the troops took the spoil, sheep and oxen, the best of what had been destroyed, to sacrifice to the Lord again, your God, at Gilgal. And look what Samuel says. Does the Lord delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as much as in obedience to the Lord's command? Surely to obey is better than sacrifice, compliance than the fat of rams. That's what God wants from us. He's not looking for all our special offerings and all the sacrifice that we make for him and all the things that we think we're doing for God. He wants obedience. For rebellion is like the sin of divination or witchcraft. When we rebel against God, it's as if we're sinning, as if we're practicing witchcraft or divination. And divination is when you try to reach the dead. Defiance is like the iniquity of teraphim, is idolatry when
And
you defy what God says. Sorry, did somebody say something? Because
horoscopes.
you,
You know, Aries, Cancer, like that.
what? Sorry, Brian?
Aries, Cancer,
Oh, you mean
horoscope.
the astrology? Yes, yes, absolutely. These are all part of that. All that new age occult stuff, God said it's wrong. Do not do it. Because you rejected the Lord's command, his mitzvot, he has rejected you as king. So Saul said to Samuel, I did wrong to transgress the Lord's commands and your instructions, but I was afraid of the troops and I yielded to them. Reminds me of what we're going to be reading in the coming weeks when we're going to hear about what Aaron said. He blamed the others for the sin of the golden calf. He was afraid of them, the people, so he yielded to them. This is the same thing. Saul is saying the same thing. Please forgive my offense and come back with me, and I will bow low before the Lord. He wanted to make a big display because here he is up in the mountain in Gilgal, and he made a great monument, not to God. Made a great monument to himself for having defeated the Amalekites. He defeated them, but he didn't destroy them all. Now he wants Samuel to go back to the people with him and make this display of bowing low before the Lord so that the people would see that God has forgiven him. But Samuel said to Saul, I will not go back with you, for you have rejected the Lord's command, and the Lord has rejected you as king over Israel. As Samuel turned to leave, Saul seized the corner of his robe and it tore. And Samuel said, as if this was a sign from God, the Lord has this day torn the kingship over Israel away from you and has given it to another who is, here it says, worthier than you, but it doesn't say that in the Hebrew. It says, re'acha means your neighbor, hatov, to a neighbor who is better, mimecha, better than you. Moreover, the glory of the Lord, the glory of Israel, does not deceive, meaning God, the God of Israel, doesn't change his mind. For he is not human that he should change his mind. When people try to take a man, as they did with Jesus, and say that he is God, here it says, God is not human that he should change his mind. No man could be Yud He Vav He. But Saul pleaded, I did wrong. please honor me in the presence of the elders of my people. He's a perfect politician. He wants to be honored in the presence of the elders. He wants people to accept him. And in the presence of all of Israel, come back with me until I have bowed low to the Lord again, your God. So Samuel followed Saul back, and Saul bowed low to the Lord. And Samuel said, bring forth to me King Agag of Amalek. And Agag approached him with faltering steps. And Agag said, oh, bitter death is at hand. He knew it was coming. And Samuel said, now remember, Saul is there. And this is what Saul was told to do. And this is what he's doing in front of everybody. As your sword has bereaved women, so shall your mother be bereaved among women. In other words, the women were left childless, so your mother is going to be left childless. And Samuel cut Agag down before the Lord at Gilgal. He was like a Pinchas. He wasn't afraid of people. He wanted to do what was right before God. Samuel then departed for Ramah, and Saul went up to his home at Gibeah of Shaul. Samuel never saw Saul again to the day of his death. But Samuel grieved over Saul because the Lord regretted that he had made Saul king over Israel. So, this is something that we need to remember. And our Torah, these are some of the thoughts that I was thinking about as I was reading it. Our Torah really is all about remembering. But what do we remember and why? It's very typical for us to remember things like the Holocaust, things when somebody passed away. You know, we remember some very terrible things that have happened to us. But on a personal level, do we remember our past and allow it to stop us in our tracks so that we can't fulfill or we can't live a full and rich life? Or do we remember our past and use it to become the people we were meant to be? God is telling us to remember. That's on a personal level. At the communal level, what's the first thing that comes to mind when Jews are asked to remember? For me, the first thing I thought of was the Seder. This is a time of remembrance. We remember at Pesach. What God tells us that we need to remember that we were delivered from slavery in Egypt, and to tell the next generation and the next generation and the next generation right up to that. We've been telling the story of Pesach for 3,500 years. Now, and one of the things that I was thinking about is that the Torah is not a book of religious traditions. When we look at Pesach today, what it's become, we have so many traditions that are bearing us under the truth of what the Torah really is. And I was thinking about how, our rabbi was a mathematician, and he would say that the Torah is a book of mathematical codes. Even the numbers are math. And they contain simple rules, these 10 commandments, again, math, 10 of them, which give us boundaries to live within, to protect us from evil, as well as the Torah also reveals complex secrets. Those are simple secrets that he reveals, simple rules, but he also reveals complex secrets for those who want to delve deeper into the Torah. And you'll see that, the Torah is filled with mysteries as well as simplicity. When I thought of that, I was thinking of the second commandment. I know I'm going to bring this all together because I want to try to bring to you where I'm going with this. The second commandment says, You shall not make for yourselves any image, any likeness of what's in heaven above or on the earth below, in the waters under the earth. You shall not bow down to them nor serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity, the guilt of the parents upon the children to the third and fourth generation of those who reject me, but showing kindness to the 1,000th generation of those who love me and keep my commandments. So the concept that God is showing us here, again, numbers, third and fourth generation. Gematria explains it that 3 and 4, these third and fourth generations, are a limited period of time, while the 1,000th generation, Elephim, Aleph is 1,000th, represents eternity. So the limited period of time could be anywhere from a literal 3 or 4 generations. A generation is about 40 years. Or it could be like what happened with Saul. From the time Saul refused to obey God, 500 years later, someone shows up on the scene, not in Israel, because we had been kicked out of our land. We went to Babylon, and now at the time of Purim, we are in Persia. 500 years after this, a man arises, and his name is Haman. So we are seeing that Saul's disobedience 500 years earlier manifested itself with Haman coming to power in Persia. 500 years later. That's how long it took for King Saul's disobedience to fully manifest itself. So we don't always know how long it's going to take for the results of something that we do. Saul disobeyed. He thought he was doing the right thing in his own warped mind, even though we see in hindsight that he wasn't. And this is a picture of the world because this happens over and over and over again. You know, people say when we rebel and we disobey God, the consequences may not show up in our lifetime. It may be revealed generations later. When I hear, after that book was written by a rabbi, why bad things happen to good people. Why do bad things happen to good people? Well, here's a case in point. Our people suffered for something that happened 5 years earlier. And it didn't show up in the lifetime of Saul, although he did suffer himself. But if you look at why do bad things happen to good people, are there really any good people? Not according to the Torah, according to the Bible. There's a Psalm 14:1 and 53:1, both say the same thing. It's just the maskil of David. The fool says in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt. Their ways are vile. There is no one who does good. God looks down from heaven upon the sons of men to see if any understand, if any seek God. All have turned away. They have together become corrupt. There is no one who does good, not even one. I mean, if we look at our lives, I can't say that I've lived a fully good life. I do good things, but am I good? It's so easy to fall. It's so easy to break a commandment. And if you look at some of the things in the followers of Yeshua, Matthew, Luke, and Shaul, one of the things it says in Matthew, Yeshua was asked about what is good. And he says, why are you asking me about what is good? There is only one who is good. If you want to enter life, keep the commandments. Which commandments? The 10. And the same thing in Luke. Why do you call me good? No one is good except God alone. See, he never said he was God, and he never said he was good. And in Romans, Saul said, I know, Shaul, nothing good lives in me. And he was a student of Gamaliel. He was a Pharisee. He said, I know that nothing good lives in me, that is in my flesh. I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. I struggle with that every single day. And I don't know that the things that I'm doing today are going to affect generations later. But look what he says in the second commandment: showing kindness to the 1,000th generation of those who love me and keep my commandments. So at some point, whether it's the third or fourth or whatever generation, we turn back to God and we love him and obey his commandments. We shift into the paradigm of his eternal kindness. And I can see in my life a kindness that he shows me in ways that are unbelievable, how he makes ways for me constantly. And this is not just at a singular level, but it's a picture of the world. Mankind, we've continuously lived through these cycles of good and then evil and evil and good. It's like but the future holds the hope that the eternal God will one day forget our guilt and we will live in eternal forgiveness and peace. And that's true shalom. That's what we're remembering when we remember Purim. Because we remember that Saul did something that 500 years later, our people paid for. That's how long it took for King Saul's disobedience to manifest itself with Haman's coming to power in Persia. And there's a whole bunch of chapters in the Torah. In Exodus, it says, Lord said to Moses, write this memorial, this remembrance in a book, and rehearse it, remember it, tell it to the ears of Joshua. And afterwards, I will utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. That hasn't happened yet. We still have Amalek in our midst. We still have the Hamas, the ISIS, the Houthis, all those, because our people are still suffering not only for those in our past who did wrong, but from our own disobedience, from our own adding and removing and taking away from the Torah. God said, just keep my 10, the way he told Adam and Eve, just keep my 1. And we have added and added. Deuteronomy 25 says, remember what the Amalekites did to you along your way, how they met you on your journey when you were tired and weary. And they attacked all the stragglers, all those in the rear. They had no fear of God. That's what you see with the enemies of Israel today. They have no fear of the one God. We see it in Judges. Whenever the Israelites planted their crops, listen to this because it reminds me of exactly what's happening today. Judges 6. Whenever the Israelites planted their crops, the Midianites, the Amalekites, and other people from the east would come up and invade them, encamping against them as far as Gaza and destroying the produce of the land. How many rockets came in from Gaza to destroy the produce of the land in Israel? Right to today. This was back in Judges, but we're reading about it today. The Torah is as alive today as it was then. They left Israel with no sustenance, neither sheep nor oxen nor donkeys. Some of the fields were completely burnt up as they are today. For the Midianites came with their livestock and their tents like a great swarm of locusts. Isn't what happened on October 7th? How they came like a swarm of locusts and they destroyed those those innocent. They didn't even have a gun in the kibbutzim. They believed in peace. These were the peaceniks. Numbers. Then Balaam saw Amalek and lifted up an oracle, saying, Amalek was first among the nations, but his end is destruction. This was from Balaam, who was a Gentile prophet. And in Chronicles, it says, they struck down the remnant of the Amalekites who had escaped, and they have lived there to this day. In the book of Esther, which we're going to read next Thursday evening. And I'm hoping Richard and Jerry, you'll be able to join us and maybe read along with us. After these events, King Ahasuerus honored Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, elevating him to a position above all the princes who were with him. And it goes on and on and on. So many verses. All you have to do is Google them. You Google the Amalekites and you'll see how many verses. They are still our enemy today. And we have to admit that we are not the great nation who is going to destroy them. It is God who's going to destroy them. It is only when we fully give ourselves in humility to God and admit who we are, that we've made a lot of mistakes, that we're doing our best, that we fail each and every single day, but that we pick ourselves up, we remind each other. That's what this community, this little community, the Shear Yashuv, this little remnant, the remnant shall return to the mighty God, says Isaiah. This is who we're named after. And we may not be many, just like there was only one prophet at a time, one Samuel, who stood up amidst all the others, or Nathan, some of the others. We've had many prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, worthy of reading. So that's what I've prepared for tonight. Any comments from what you've heard?
It's we pay for the consequences of other sins, even though we're all, it's true when the different people you mentioned said no one is good, but there's no one is good in the sense that we all have flaws, but there are those who are obedient, and there's a difference, because it's from lack of obedience that there are consequences, not lack of by our very nature we're not good. But
well, that's the story of Abraham.
Sorry?
That's the story of Abraham. Abraham was considered righteous because of his obedience to get up and leave.
But not because he was just a good man in the
Right.
sense. So we all try and be obedient and be good, but are we perfect or good? No, I'm
Nobody
certainly
is.
not. But yeah, there are consequences not only of our own bad choices, etc., our disobedience, but other people's. For example, you come from a family, whatever you want to call it, a family, let's say, where whatever, the parents are alcoholics, or they fight all the time, or they don't talk to you. There are consequences. The kids will pick up on that, and then they may do the same thing to their kids, whatever. But there are consequences of all our actions.
Exactly.
But,
right.
Obedience doesn't make you a good person. It makes you an obedient person.
Right. Exactly. That's what God wants from us.
Yeah.
He says, I don't want your sacrifices. I don't care. Don't bring your oxen to me thinking that this is what I want. Obey me. There's people who say, I do everything. I tithe on Yom Kippur. I fast all day on Yom Kippur, even though the Torah says it's a feast day. They would bring their animals to the temple on Yom Kippur. We've changed that. And what do they say? What does the Torah say about Pesach? The only thing we have to do is don't eat matzah. We don't need 10 sets of dishes and 2 kitchens and 3 stoves and we've gone over. We're overdoing everything, and God is not asking us for that. Obedience. Learn my commandments and obey them. You're going to fail, but keep doing it. Don't be afraid. Keep going. Step into the sea. I'm going to lead the way for you. God is our leader. He's our guide, and He does it. It's absolutely amazing, the doors that He opens for us when we say yes to God. Jerry, you have any comments?
No, not tonight. I had a lot of comments last time, not every time.
Okay.
What are you, I'm curious, are you on a rotating stool?
Who's that?
I was just wondering, because for a while you were like going,
Are you dancing? You're standing up and dancing.
are you standing up or are you on a stool that goes around the room?
I'll explain that one time before we start.
Okay. Richard, do you have any comments? Okay, I guess Richard bowed out for a minute. Anyway,
Baruch, do you have any comments?
Baruch?
I'll study on it, okay? I'm still here.
Okay. Okay, good. By the way, when I read 3 verses from the so-called New Testament. Our rabbi always talked about that the book, he called it the Messianic writings. These were the writings from the followers of Yeshua. And our community, certainly, we read them. We've read these writings. We understand that many of them have been changed according to who did the interpretations and the translations of them over the centuries. There were 6,000 versions of the New Testament, and we just because just because something says something, if it does not line up with the Torah, we reject it. Because remember, there's a whole history of the church, the Catholic Church that came out of the Roman Empire, and then the modern church is just a continuation of leaving, the Catholic Church, becoming Protestantism, and then the many, many, many sects. That's not who we see our Yeshua. For us, Yeshua was a rabbi who lived at the time of the Romans. He lived as a Jew. He died as a Jew. He never proclaimed to be God. We do not believe that in any way, shape, or form. But he has a place amongst our heroes. His role, in the same way that Moses' role was to bring us the Ten Commandments, Yeshua's role was to bring us back to them at a time when there were so many heavy rules and regulations. The Talmud had become very, very heavy by this time. And the temple was corrupted, and he wanted us to come back. He left the temple. He went out to be with the Essenes, those other priests or those other Kohanim who left the temple and were living in the desert. So he's a very different from the Jesus Christ of Christianity, and I want to make that very clear for anybody who's listening in here. And if I'm not looking to insult, I'm just looking to say we do not follow a religion in this community. We'd follow what's called biblical Judaism, not rabbinic Judaism, not New Testament, not Quran, not any other books other than our Torah. All of the others are an application. Even the rest of the Torah are applications of how to apply the Ten Commandments to our lives, and that's really, really important to talk about. How do we live these 10? And that is these. I'm hopefully they come out during the messages that we're giving, is how we live them, because that's what helps us to live a rich and full life in the midst of all the craziness that's going on in the world. We can still be joyful. We can be happy. We can know that we are protected, that we have a God above who leads the way for us, and that when we walk in his path, in the direction that he's taking us on, we will rejoice. Doesn't mean we're always happy or always rejoicing, but it means that we have hope. We have hope for a better day. If we cry at night, we laugh in the morning. That's what the psalm says. So I want to thank you for joining in tonight. It's a little bit shorter, but it was good to see you all. And if you have any questions or any other comments, please don't hesitate. We look forward to hearing from you. So if nobody else has anything to say for tonight, I'm going to say Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
and have a wonderful evening, and may God bless us and keep us. And I'm going to send out to all those who are here and the rest of our community an invitation to our Purim on Thursday night,
It's March 13th, Thursday.
March
What time?
13th, and we're doing it at 8 p.m.
Okay,
so that those who are in a different time zone can join in with us.
right.
I don't know if we're going to wear costumes this year. We did it 2 years ago. Last year we had a party at someone's house, but we can't do a party at the Alvarados this year because his mother just passed
Right.
away.
But you're still having a Wednesday and a Saturday, next Wednesday as
We're
well?
going to have the Wednesday, we're going to have the Thursday night, and we're going to have a Shabbat.
Okay. I'll look forward to getting some links, all of them. Thank
I
you.
will send you the links. No problem. Jerry, it was nice to see you. Richard, stay safe in California. I suggest you move to Colorado before the earthquake hits. Okay. God bless you all. And
Bye.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Bye,
Bye, Brian.
Adios, amigos.
Adios, amigos.
Jerry, you're moving around on your chair.
Yeah, he likes to dance. Okay, good night.